as any other kind of games, things changed, models change, and now our next speaker is going to be talking how if you are tired of the hyper-casual publishing deals, you are going to create your own. So please give a really warm welcome to Hugo Furneaux. Please give me a hand.
Hiya, my name's Hugo Furneaux, and I'm CEO of ADC Games and PlayEmber. And this is our talk on whether you're tired of the hyper-casual publishing model, why don't you become your own publisher? This is a step we took about 9 months ago, and we're really happy we did, and we want to tell you our journey. So just an overview of what we'll go through today. Who are PlayEmber, what we've done, what we've experienced, why the move away from the normal hyper-casual publishing model, the challenges and the benefits of that move, and then what is to come from us. So we are a team, so PlayEmber is the self-publishing arm of ADC Games. We're a team of just over 10 now, and over the last 3 years with ADC Games, we've published over 70 million, haven't published over 70 million games. We've had over 70 million downloads, and we've worked with all the leading hyper-casual publishers, Boombit, Voodoo, Quali, and more. And then in the last 8 months, we made the move to PlayEmber, where we've had over 20 million downloads, and that's kind of focusing on longer-term value games and moving away from the purely hyper-casual to the casual games. So what have we done? So we've published around 10 games with industry experts, so Boombit, Voodoo, Quali, Lion Studios, and Boom Hits. With Voodoo, we were around right at the kind of the start of the hyper-casual boom, and we learned a lot from them. We published 3 games with them, the first one being Idle Flipper, and that was back in the day where you could get a day one retention of, I think, like 85%. It was pretty crazy, but those days are long gone. We learned so much from these guys, from these publishers. One tip I would give is to just ask loads of questions because they've got such a wealth of knowledge. But after doing this for a few years, we really felt like there was more to learn and we wanted a bit more control over the process. And that's where PlayEmber comes in. So throughout the last 9 months, we've created kind of longer-term value games. So with hypercards, kind of a card game which is notoriously high CPI and kind of good in-game stats, we were able to rely on kind of a pack opening mechanic and a trading mechanic. And we could get a low CPI with a card game, but high in-game stats. And this is kind of a game that perhaps you wouldn't associate with a normal hyper-casual publisher. And I think this is a game that probably wouldn't have got to the stage of publishing with a normal hyper-casual publishing model. But with self-publishing it did, and it's our best hit to date, and it's a #1 card game. With Superhero Race, it's kind of a really, I suppose, a normal hyper-casual game, but because we are self-publishers now, and we are kind of our own bosses, we saw that there was a really nice runner mechanic where you change the characters, and we thought, okay, we're going to jump on that. We think a superhero theme would be really, really good, and from kind of ideation to publishing took about 3 weeks because we chucked everyone on it, and that game has over 50 million downloads now. With Raft Life, our kind of idle arcade baby, one of the first idle arcade games, with the self-publishing, we feel like we've become a bit more efficient. So we have 2 games in soft launch that use the same code base as this game, because we built it in kind of a modular way. So yeah, that's a tip I'd give. If you can create any code kind of modularly that you can get multiple hit games out of one, that's great. We're also porting Raft Life over to Switch as well, which is quite exciting. With Slingshot Crash, one thing, relatively new game, so over a month old, but has had over 1 million downloads. We really tried to push the boundaries with what's possible on Unity and on mobile devices. So there's kind of a real scale of mass deformation of kind of the car bodyworks. And we found anything that kind of pushes the boundaries. And we did a previous game with Lion Studios called Pressure Washer with really good water physics. In tier 1 countries, that seems to work really well because it's kind of hasn't been seen before and gets a low CPI. So generally our experience with publishers been a really, really positive experience. We've learned so much. Yeah, they have an absolute wealth of knowledge. We've asked loads of questions, and it certainly has allowed us to grow to the stage we are now, because we could kind of focus solely on our core strength of game development. We have found, though, however, that has kind of narrowed our knowledge set. So we were kind of so focused on development and so focused on hitting black and white KPIs that actually a lot of games that I think could have been hits over the last few years kind of fell by the wayside. And another thing that became really apparent was that you are one of the mobile game studios that the publishers work with. So you really are a small cog in a large machine. And I think it's kind of naive to think perhaps that you would have the same, or your goals would be aligned with a large hyper-casual publisher. For example, a publisher may want to push the game to #1 in the charts, which may mean kind of scaling aggressively and those profit margins really, really reduce. Whereas as a smaller game studio, you'd probably rather scale at a lowest level and keep those profit margins. But when you are kind of in the normal hyper-casual publishing model, that's not really a call you get to make. So why the move for us? One of the big things was to own the games that we made. In this kind of gaming industry where there are lots of investments and M&As, we really felt like we wanted to grow a portfolio of games. And it was always a bit kind of a bittersweet moment when you got a game with good enough stats to be published, but you are kind of giving it away and giving the IP away. So we wanted to keep that. We really wanted access to all the stats. As I'll come on to later, that has really helped us in the last 8-9 months create what we think are better games, because we have so much more insight into what works. We're not kind of UA superstars by any means, but we wanted a bit more control over the ad creatives and see all the ad creatives that were run. And we really wanted to kind of cement the move away from being a development studio that works with a publisher to a mobile game studio, as we feel that's kind of a bit more sustainable going forward. And finally, we have learned so much from the hyper-casual publishers, but we kind of had got to a stage, not that we have learned everything by any means, but we thought it was time to kind of learn by doing and really getting our hands dirty. The challenges of the move, I would definitely not recommend it if you're a team under 5 or if you don't have a lot of experience in the space, because there is just a hell of a lot more to do. That does mean you're kind of less focused solely on development. But as I'll go on to later, I think that's actually better, because a kind of a more holistic view, I think, produces better games in the end. A huge benefit of the move was how much we've learned over 9 months. We think kind of, yeah, we've learned everything from the ideation stage to UA, all the way through to launching a game. We found that kind of a holistic view of all the game projects has really helped to create more hit games with higher LTVs. So, for example, with Hypercards, we had a prototype with a good CPI, but the playtime was really poor and the in-game stats were poor. And we had another prototype that had, or the theme of that prototype had a really, really good eCPM. And just kind of having access to all those stats, we were able to merge them together and effectively create Hypercards. It's never overly talked about, but the the KPIs you need to get a hit publishable game when you are doing self-publishing are lower than that of the normal hyper-casual publishing model, because you don't need to share revenues. And also, big hyper-casual publishers, I think, are looking for the 1 in 1,000 game that makes big profits, whereas a smaller game studio can kind of live off those smaller games that make enough money to hire 2, 3 more devs each month. And that's kind of how you sustainably grow. And one of the other really big bits was a freedom to follow opportunities. So in this market that's kind of ever changing, we really didn't want to be told to do a certain type of prototype or anything like that. And that kind of freedom to follow opportunities has led us onto our largest project to date, and that's a NFT fully playable game called Budz, play to earn, and I'd love to show you the promo video for that now. Cool. So yeah, we're really excited to announce Budz. So it's a game first, because we're a game studio at heart, NFT project, and play to earn. We've created 6,666 hand-modeled playable NFTs. And when we looked at all the kind of other play to earn projects around, staking seemed to be a bit of an afterthought. So we've really kind of put that in the heart of the game and the gameplay loop. So the more you play, the higher your APYs will get. This is certainly a project that we would not have got to do if we were in a normal publishing model. So in conclusion, we would really recommend a partnership model or a self-publishing model where your goals are aligned with each other. If you're a really small team, I'd encourage you to go to the hyper-casual publishers in a kind of normal deal, learn as much as you can, and then when you get hits, kind of grow sustainably from there and try and build up your team until you get to a point where you think you can take the next step. Another one is to weigh up your options. There is so much going on in the industry, and I'd recommend you to not get kind of any exclusive deals or anything that won't allow you to follow certain opportunities. And then that leads me on to, if you would like any help kind of with the transition from a team that is working with hyper-casual publishers and you want to go into self-publishing a bit more, we'd be happy to kind of answer any questions or any help. So thank you very much.
We have a few minutes for questions, if you guys have questions to ask. I always have to ask the first one because people are too shy for that. I have a question. What is your advice for developers that want to do self-publishing so they can compensate for the lack of funding for UI, for user acquisition?
Sorry, I missed the first bit.
Like that. When you are self-publishing, especially in hyper-casual, the biggest problem they will have is user acquisition, or all the testing, iteration, and then the user acquisition. So what is your advice for people that want to go this route for self-publishing, but to compensate for these issues?
Okay, yeah, well, I suppose we've been in a lucky position that we kind of made this move when we have had hit games, so we had funding kind of in the bank. If that wasn't the case, then I'd recommend to kind of team up with a partner, and I think as long as your kind of goals are really aligned, and perhaps you say that we really only want to push this if we keep project margins at this, because our main goal is to make profit rather than downloads.
Makes sense. If you don't get shy, you can jump in. Otherwise, I will ask another question. You might hate me for this question afterwards.
Yeah.
So sorry about this. You said that you were doing a game with NFTs.
Yeah.
We know there is a lot of back and forward, positive and negative going around with NFTs. So if you would be so kind of say, how are you dealing with it? How is the audience answering to things? I'm really curious to know how has been the repercussion around NFTs for you guys.
Yeah, so I think it's helped that it's a completely new game. I think there's been a lot of kind of negativity around kind of current user bases when a game is kind of changed to an NFT. But no, we've kind of had positive feedback, but it's something a bit new. But we're kind of really excited to see where it takes us, to be honest.
Nice.